know enough to say is this, that people, real secular atheists, spiritual, whether they're rabbis or messianic believers, far right extreme politically, far left liberal politically, all four positions, many of their spokespersons are saying it will probably happen. I go, are you kidding? And I've heard different reasons why, and it's just go to YouTube. You can really kind of find out. It's not complicated to find out. And I just couldn't believe it. They're all saying, not that it will happen, it will probably happen. And now Netanyahu, I've seen a few YouTube things of him recently, and he's using the term civil war. He goes, this is not a quote, but we don't need for this to end up in a civil war. But the word civil war is now in the lips of the most prominent leaders. I'm going, my goodness, what on earth? And most of the Western media is not picking up on that. I mean, 700 Club, Gordon Robertson and Chris Mitchell, those kind of guys are picking up on it. But the Western media is not. They're way left and and the argument, judicial reform, I'll give it to you, just the simplest, so don't take my word for it. I'm a zero authority on this, that's pretty obvious. But the Israel Supreme Court has 15 members in it. Okay, the guys are explaining this to me. I didn't fact check this, but I heard it a couple times. I assume it's right. But go fact check it if you really want to say it adamantly. They go, there's like 15, I think exactly 15, I don't know. But the Supreme Court in Israel is different than America because the Supreme Court in Israel picks the Supreme Court. They're not picked by a democratic process like we have a president and a House of Representatives, a Congress, those things. All of those things come together and then the president picks one. In the outflow of his political clout or whatever. In Israel, the 15 pick the next one. And so they're far leftists, and they only pick far leftists. And so that's situation number one, and that's been going on for years. Now over situation number two, and again, I'm not an expert on the political nuances of Israel at all. I've just heard this 5 or 6 times, and so it's probably close to true, is that Israel's government, very similar to England, is a prime minister has to form a coalition government. And they have to have 51% of the Knesset. The Knesset's 120 people, probably related, 120 shows up in the Old Testament. I guess that's where they got it. I don't know. But they need 51%, so they need, out of 120, 61 people. And whenever the prime minister, England or Israel, something like this, when they lose the 51%, then they lose their government. Then they have another election. That's why they've had about 5 elections in England and in Israel in the last 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, they don't wait every 4 years. When the guy loses 51%, they have another thing. He's lost his government. That's something close to that. So Netanyahu, I think this is his 3rd time. And so the way that, now these are some Christian leaders telling me this, but they each said it, several of them have said it, so I think it's possibly true. But again, I'm not an expert, and so I just always want to say that. And so there's a number of conservative, Orthodox, rabbi-type guys, I don't know if they're rabbis, but Orthodox, that are in the Knesset. I don't know the number. I've been saying this for like 4 weeks. I ought to just go check out the number. Let's say there's about 10 of them. I don't know if there's 10. They went to Netanyahu and said, if you will change the Supreme Court, break up their stronghold over our nation, because they're pushing the gay agenda, they're pushing abortion, they're pushing all these things. And these kind of conservative Orthodox guys, they're wrecking our nation with American values. If you take them on, we will stand with you. My guess, just a guess, they probably don't really like him. And my guess is he might not be best friends with them. That's just a guess. That's a guess. But they said, and the minute you don't stand, I don't know about the minute, but we're pulling out and you're losing your coalition government. And so, okay. So Netanyahu, and there's about 5 other forces, but that's a big one, but there's 2 or 3 more like that. Because He got 64 votes. He only needs 61 out of 120. He's got 3 to spare. He's got a couple other elements like that that were not naturally for him, but gave him ultimatums. And so he stands up and he says, we're going to reform the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has all the liberal media, which everyone, and they go, you want to bet? Watch. And he has 2 reforms. He wants the Knesset to have a vote in who the future ones are, like America. And they want the Knesset that if the Supreme Court makes a law, the Knesset, if they have 51%, they could stop that law. Because these laws are super liberal. And they're, all through their school system, just the gay agenda, the trans agenda, all these things that the left is calling, like in America, equality, diversity, and freedom. But the guys on the right, these Orthodox guys, are going, we're calling it corruption and destruction to our nation. And so they're telling Netanyahu, according to the guys telling me, Netanyahu, I haven't returned any of his calls, just so you know. So I don't know. I could be a little off on this, but there's a lot of folks, I've told the story several times, like, that's pretty much, you're on the right, and the right, there's all kinds of nuances, more intense than what I'm saying that I don't get. So the left is going, you're not taking our power. So they got the media, and they got some real big money guys, billions of dollars, funding key voices in the left. And so the left is telling the community, Netanyahu's destroying democracy, meaning he's not going to let the gay agenda get in schools, and he's going to try to stop abortion. Those kind of things. And I don't know if those are the exact things, but so the media's, Netanyahu's going to destroy democracy. Stop him. It's anarchy. I mean, it's tyranny. He's destroying us. But so there's 500,000 in the streets protesting. Now for 12 weeks, tens of thousands, but the last week, like 500,000. Because the population, the general population, many of the millions are believing the narrative, Netanyahu's destroying democracy. And he is a tyrant. Netanyahu's side, which has got many different factions that don't all agree, they're saying those guys are destroying democracy. And it's anarchy. They want to control our schools. They want to control our tax money. They are destroying us. So both groups are doubled down. And if Netanyahu backs down, he loses the government. If they don't, it's a real intense thing. So a couple of other things happened that intensified it. When he fired his Secretary of Defense. And that's a pretty dramatic story of what happened. But he did that in context of his council. They were, together. Again, I don't know. It's like I said, I haven't answered his phone calls. But I don't know the real dynamics. But so they have 500,000 night after night in the street on the left. But there's that many on the right, actually. There's as many on the right who think that's a false narrative. Very similar to America, except for America, we get to, through Democratic elected officials, pick the Supreme Court. They don't. And the Supreme Court doesn't get to make all the laws at will. And our Supreme Court makes some, but they can't do it. So it's way more intense than America, in the way I've understood it. So then what happens is Netanyahu got up and he says, I'll put a pause on the judicial reform. This is at Passover. I'll put a pause. He didn't say I'm changing my mind, and his government over here says, you better not change your mind. We're out if you don't stand. I'm thinking private, I didn't say I was out, I just said I'm pausing it. I can imagine their 12-hour conversations every day. It's pretty intense. The people on the left are going, well, he put a pause on, so yeah, but he's a liar. Let's not back down. Well, it took some of the fuel out of the movement of 500,000 a night, so it's died down. Because the Knesset, he put a pause on it, the Knesset, because of Passover, went on a 30-day recess. And so the conversations dialed down. The recess is over May 1st. The conflict is full steam May 1st. And so 40 years ago, that's why I told the long story about 40 years ago, the Lord picked May 7 of 28. We didn't care about those dates. He did. He picked May 7 of 28, and 40 years later, I'm going, I didn't know about that crisis in January and February and March when we started talking about this. It was after we said it, I went, are you kidding? I look up and say, Lord, he goes, yeah, I've been planning this for 40 years, well, much longer than that, but that's good enough for you for now, for 40 years. I've been planning this. And yeah, I picked those dates 40 years ago because he did real clearly. And May 7th meant nothing to us. Because I've told the story for 40 years, May 7th is real special to the IHOP community, but before that, it was the same as June 18th. We didn't know anything. But now I go, Lord, my goodness. And, 5 or 10 million involved, some degree, many of them an hour a day, many of them an hour a week, I don't know. And a year from today, 40, 50 million in the conversation. And another thing happens, I said there's 3 things, there's really 5 or 10. For the first time in history, Iran has a nuclear weapon ready in May. Now I've watched again 5 or 10 YouTubes, so I'm an authority on this one too. And some of these smart guys go, this is in March. They said, they'll have it by the end of April. Another guy goes, oh, that's ridiculous. They won't have it till May. Another guy goes, no, they won't get it till June. April, May, June, okay. They get it. I don't know which is real, but it's what? And they describe why they will have it then. And now that's what really ramped up in the news in the last 3-4 days. Because Iran did not threaten to destroy Israel with a bomb. They promised to destroy Israel when they get the bomb. And they will have that nuclear weapon. They either have it or they will very soon. Whether it's a week or a month, I don't know. But May is dead center again. Oh my goodness. This is so intense. I'll tell you one more. I'm more even hesitant to act like I know what I'm talking about on this third one. I don't know that much about the first 2. I just want to keep saying it because there's really smart people whose lives are on the line by the right story. And I don't want to be playing around with something that serious. But I've heard this over and over, so I know it's in the right direction of what the true narrative is. But Israel, the West Bank. Now, we all hear the West Bank, but not everybody in America knows where it's at. The West Bank is, that I'm making up that 10 or 15 miles, by about 5 miles. I just made that up. I just do it on the map. It's about that big on the map. And Jerusalem is right near the middle of it. That's called the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. That's what it was called in the Bible. Well, the Palestinians have their homes there. And in the 6-day war, the Israel gained the West Bank and got control of it, but gave it back to them. And so people in Israel say it's still really Israel's and Abraham and David in the Bible. And the Palestinians go, well, we've been here for 1,000 years. It's ours. So that big debate, I'm not going into that debate. That's not what I'm doing. Is that Israel, after 1967, and they officially gave the territory back, the United Nations made a law, real strong. You can't put any settlements in the West Bank. You can't put any. Well, Israel put one, put another one, put another one, put another one, put another one. And the United Nations going, we're warning you, put another one, put another one, put another one. And now I forgot the number. If anybody knows the actual number, plus or minus 10, it's like 230 of them. Does anybody know that number? Because that was a month ago, and I've been doing these Zoom calls all day, so I'm a little loose in the brain here. Some number like that. I mean, it's exploded. And these settlements is what Israel calls them. And Palestinians call it, you're occupying and you're oppressing us. Because Israel comes in with their state-of-the-art technology, and they have like really nice, really good-looking, like subdivisions, a mile or 2 long. And maybe they're not all that big, but think of a mile or 2. But right next to it is a poor, like inner-city poor village. And Israel's got big fences around all of them. and really nice and technology and beautiful manicured lawns and landscape. And the Palestinians look over the fence and go, my goodness. And Israel did 10, 20, 30. And now I think it's like 200. I think it's 230. I don't know. Go check that number. But part of the government of Netanyahu, one of the other wings, who maybe did not stand for him, but now will, said, you give us a free hand to double the amount of settlements, because you may not be in power long. And if the left is in power, they will stop us. And we're only with you if you look the other way and let us double down. Now, that's what I've heard. I could be wrong on this. But the number of settlements is increasing, unusually rapid, because they think they got a very short amount of time until Netanyahu's out. Again, I could be off on a bit of this, but they're increasing. Well, the Palestinian youth are going, this is ridiculous. This is because they're nice. And the villages, many of them are poor. Not all of them, but many of them, it's just rough. And they're looking over at the Israel prosperity. And so this is my read, okay? This is purely my read on it. These Palestinian youth, let's say these 20-year-olds, these guys, and I'm psychologically thinking I'm understanding a teeny bit of their mindset. They're going, Israel is taking property and pushing my mom off of her territory. My mom's in her 60s. I'm not going to let this happen. Not on my watch. So they're taking these Molotov cocktails and things, and they're bombing. They're creating havoc. To them, it's about the Palestine to them, but I think it's about their moms. I think they're saying, we'll be fine one day, but my mom has worked her whole life, and they're taking her land block by block. Not going to happen. So they're doubling down because the amount of settlements is speeding up. Because some people in the government, because the United Nations won't touch it, and they know it, this part of Netanyahu's government. And I've been told some of them are saying, Netanyahu, we only got a minute. We are putting more and more in because it's really hard to undo them once you put them in. And so these kids, I get it. They're thinking of their moms. Now, again, I could talk to some 25-year-old. He goes, that's not it at all. I think it probably is a few of them. So, what's water? That was great, that water. That carpet needed watering. Something grows there. I did it. So what happens? They're throwing these Molotov cocktails. The anger is intensified. I get it. But the Israel military, because they got the real strong right government, is going, we're going to tell you for sure, you will pay if you touch us. So the military's doubling down. So those young 20, 30-year-olds are doubling down. So the military's doubling down, and that thing is ratcheting up right now in May. Well, it's right now, but it's unique ratchet up over the last number of years. And there's about 4 or 5 other areas, but May is the greatest crisis. I think it's possible with all these. Many say it will be the greatest crisis in their 75 years as a nation. Because they became a nation, their 75-year anniversary is May 14. That's their 75th year. And they've never had a crisis of a civil war, a nuclear weapon, and the social unrest of these young guys who are thinking, we can't be silent. Kill me if you want to. But the Israeli government say, we can't let you have the message that you're getting away with this. It's stuck. It is stuck like it's never been stuck in modern history.